Here is, in an interview with Bloomberg, the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, trying to explain to the establishment why they need to cool down and calm their jets. 105, please.
In your old world, you would be that person with your ear against the door trying to understand what policymakers were doing so then you could predict where financial markets would go. In this moment where we hear from top executives constantly, today it was the Goldman Sachs CEO, last week it was Jamie Dimon, and this uncertainty, especially around tariff policy, what advice would you be giving to your old self?
To look at the whole policy, because, again, not you, but others in the media can pick one factor. So right now it's tariff, but we have, you mentioned we have tax coming up. We have deregulation. So, it's a the leg stool. And I would try to think about, what's happening. The tariff sequencing was always going to be first. The tax bill's going very well. And I think I've been pleasantly surprised at how quickly that's moving along. And then deregulation, from our area on the financial side and in the rest of the economy, that takes a little longer, but that will start kicking in September, October, in the fall, and those are going to be very powerful.
Bilateral deals first with UK and some Asian countries. Do you think that his elevation now and his speaking out in the way we saw in that clip is enough to calm the horses to get them through the next few weeks till they can start announcing some bilateral deals, or it's still a crisis?
I think the point that he's making there, which is something that Kevin Hassett is echoing as well, is that there's this holistic approach, right? Hey, you guys, the tariffs might, theoretically raise you $1, but the taxes will cut you $1. The deregulation will save you another $1. Net, you'll be better off. So they're trying to make it look at the whole environment in which you're going to be doing business. I think if there was certainty, Dan talks about that all the time, that the problem is for a lot of these guys, they're like, I'm not sure I can bank on that. And I think that's the problem for a lot of these folks, is that you're telling them that there's short-term pain and you should bank on a potentially uncertain future. And that's where I think there's a bigger problem, is that everything that he's saying, I think, will probably happen. But if you're a business leader that has to plan for the next quarter, how much is certain? And I think that's the bigger problem that they face, is that there's not this. They're always searching for certainty to plan, investment, et cetera. And I'm not sure that they're getting that.
Dan, where do you put Scott Bessent in the pantheon of Treasury secretaries whose job includes trying to reassure markets?
I think he's pretty good. I don't disagree with his message. There are some good things likely about to happen between, let's say, Memorial Day and 4th of July. It is likely they will pass some version of tax cuts and deregulation in energy, financial services, some other things that should provide a juice to the economy. It's real. It's just a question of, do they get these deals, these bilateral deals with the bigger countries? I think if you get them with very small countries trying to roll up to the top, it's better than nothing, but I don't think it'll move the needle. And then to Sean's point, the macro trade environment is material to a lot of these companies, and they will not want to do mergers, acquisitions, or large capital expenditures when there is so much uncertainty. They're unlikely.
By the way, just to be clear, and I think I've mentioned this before, but like a full-on FTA, a free trade agreement, a bilateral FTA, yes, that takes years. Doing what they're talking about now, this is where I see media reports about how this is going to take forever. That's just simply not true. Dealing with a harmonized tariff schedule from another country is a very different beast than negotiating an entire FTA. So there is a...
Well, but you anticipate these deals will deal with non-tariff barriers or not?
Oh, I think to some degree they have to, but again, a country can decide fairly easily. They're not... Most of these countries, in fact, I haven't heard a single one so far. When you're dealing with an FTA, it's both ways, right? You do this, I'll do this. I disagree that how this. I haven't seen a single instance of pushback saying, fine, if we take down our non-tariff barrier on your pork coming into our country, we want greater access in the following 5 ways. I haven't seen a single instance of this. So it's not, you can deal with both in a very simple way. I literally had this conversation with Netanyahu last Monday, and I said, what are you going to do? He goes, we're just going to get rid of them, full stop. Like, and I said, that's it. There's no, he goes, no, we're getting rid of them. I go, what about the non-tariff barriers? We'll get rid of them. They gave us a list. We'll get rid of them.
But doesn't that require a lot of due diligence to be
I was
confident
just
that they're
going to say, it depends what.
Well, no. So yes, right? Because again, half of the time you look at what South Korea said when we negotiated the FTA with them about autos, and they can put a lot on paper, and then you go to implement it, and suddenly there's no U.S. cars because they hold everyone up at customs for 3 months or whatever. And I think so. But from a due diligence standpoint, you can say, great, we are going to take the tariff, the barriers down, or we're going to take the retaliatory tariffs down, and we will then use the next 90 days to verify that everything is in this agreement, but as a gesture of goodwill. But that could easily be done.
I just think, yeah, sorry.
Well, no, go ahead, Dan.
I just think it is so much more complicated than that, even on a bilateral trade deal, because in a lot of instances, it's not king to king. They've got to get their own parliaments, their own congresses to approve this. They have their own domestic constituencies. The idea that let's say the UK is going to pull down all of their tariffs and non-tariff barriers, and that's the end of the discussion. What are they getting? What are we going to do for? I mean, it's so much.
What are they getting? They already got it.
Yeah.